What is up, everybody? Welcome to the Happy Hour Hoops pregame show. Tonight we got a little bit of Nets, Milwaukee Bucks action. Jake and Dunny, as always, and we got a special guest here, a recurring guest now, Spenny from Fireside Nets on Twitter is where you can find him, and that is with Empire Sports Media. Spenny is our Nets guy. We call him Spenny and the Nets. How you doing tonight, Spenny? Good to have you.
I'm doing well, and it feels great to be back. Thanks for having me back on. Excited to talk some Nets basketball with you too.
Hell yeah, bro.
Before we jump right into everything, we do want to, as always, tell you guys that Happy Hour Hoops is brought to you by Manscaped. You can get a special discount at manscaped.com if you use the code word Trainwreck at checkout, 20% off, free shipping. You know, it's springtime. You're going to want to clean yourself up. Go over to manscaped.com to do so. But let's get into some NBA talk, fellas.
I'm fucking ready, man. This game, we've got a great matchup tonight. Game 2 of the little set here between the Brooklyn Nets and the Milwaukee Bucks. Sunday was an absolute thriller, 117-114 win for the Bucks. Nets jumped out to a huge early lead. We're getting great minutes from Kevin Durant. I mean, but Spenny, just a quick question. Do you like seeing Kevin Durant put up 35 shots? Because I feel like it's just got to be a great feeling as a Nets fan to just see him just like, you know what, I'm just taking this whole damn thing over and putting up as much as I want the whole game, right? Like that's got to be great.
Watching Kevin Durant play for the team you root for is one of the coolest things I've ever had the privilege of experiencing in my entire life. I mean, he's a guy that every shot he takes, you think it's going in because there's nobody who can contest his shot in the league. He can separate. I mean, you saw that. I don't know if you guys saw, there was a clip of PJ Tucker after Durant scored on him like a baseline J. Tucker's like, I didn't know you had that in your bag. I've been watching you for 3 weeks. You've been doing this. You did that. And Durant's like, oh, I got that in my bag. So he's a very fun player to watch. He takes a lot of high percentage shots. And, you know, even though he missed 2 threes in the last few seconds to essentially lose the game, I can live with those shots because I know he's going to make those shots more times than not.
Yeah, we've seen him hit those shots plenty of times over his career. But yeah, it was just a great showing between the two stars. You could tell that Giannis, I mean, we should talk about him obviously too. He had 49 in the win, and you could tell it kind of took it personally trying to go after one-on-one with Durant, and it's kind of been like that with the other matchup earlier in the year too. We know how Giannis feels about James Harden for sure too. So just that animosity, it's there with this matchup. It's been a playoff atmosphere the first 2 games, so we're looking forward to it tonight with another match between these two. So the first thing we want to talk to you about and ask you, Spenny, here with this Nets team right now. Again, no James Harden tonight. We've rarely seen these three together, and this has been a story. I mean, I feel like we've asked you this every time you've been on, but it's relevant to go through. Do you have it as we come around to the end of the year? Do you have any concerns that we really haven't seen this group together yet? Or do you think that these guys, it's been maybe it's been in the plan all along? Maybe Steve's idea was like, we're never going to let the league see these guys and we'll just unleash it afterwards. Like, what are you thinking? And how do you feel going into the playoffs with this group not really having that much time together?
I'm not concerned about the chemistry angle. I don't believe that. I think that Harden, Kyrie, and KD can play together like on any given day of the year. They don't have to have practice together. They don't have to have played together. They're 3 of the best players in the NBA. So I'm not worried about the chemistry angle. What I am concerned about is it's not a guarantee that Harden is back for the first round. There isn't a timetable on him. So when, you know, people in the Nets media talk about Harden's return, when Nash references it, we're not promised anything. So what concerns me is not having James Harden in possibly the first or second round of the playoffs. If he's in there, if he plays, concerns go out the door.
You kind of saw the absence of Harden Sunday afternoon there with the Bucks got the victory. And KD, I mean, he wasn't necessarily struggling, but KD and Kyrie, they just didn't look as comfortable as they normally do in end of game situations. And you have to think maybe the end of that tight game goes a little differently if you do have all 3 of them out there. Most importantly, James Harden, because KD and Kyrie kind of came out at the beginning of this year and said, that's our point guard. And Kyrie said, when we're on the floor together, he's kind of the guy who's going to take control of the ball. And it did look like a little bit like they were missing Harden. So I can see the concern there.
I'll tell you this, Donnie. KD doesn't need anybody on his team to make life easier for him because he
That's
can
true.
walk onto any team and get 42. Kyrie Irving was a huge beneficiary of James Harden being able to play off the ball, didn't really have to worry about getting his teammates involved. Now what you're seeing is a Kyrie who occasionally has bad shooting nights. His assist numbers fluctuate. You know, he'll have 3 assists one night and then 12 assists the other night. And he's in a little bit of a cold streak right now. And the fact that he's not getting his teammates involved as much as Harden would be, Durant's obviously not the best, you know, or he's not looking to pass all the time. He's actually a pretty good passer. It leaves a lot of these other guys like the Joe Harrises, the Landry Shamits. It kind of just decreases their value a little bit. So my big thing is when Harden gets back into this lineup, we'll be able to see guys like Nick Claxton, guys like Shamet, guys like Joe Harris, Bruce Brown. All these guys will start to play better because they'll be getting the ball in situations where they can score. Nobody else other than KD and maybe Blake Griffin played well for the Nets in that game against the Bucks on Sunday. Yeah. But a big reason of that is because Kyrie and KD aren't looking to get a lot of guys involved. So that's kind of where the Nets are right now.
Yeah, so it's interesting. I try to think about this Nets team and just the offense in the lens of as much as it, you know, it's a Steve Nash head coach, whatever. I think of it in a D'Antoni lens all the time when I try to like compare it to anything just offensively and just the style of play, because you can see the imprint that he had. Like clearly D'Antoni's influence is all over this team being on that bench and kind of guiding along with Steve Nash in his first, you know, foray into coaching. But that's kind of what we've seen from D'Antoni teams in the past too, is that you get these guys. I mean, we've seen it obviously with Harden in just the way that he was used in Houston, but they like to get heavy usage out of their star players. I mean, we saw it with the Suns back in the day too. Like the usage and volume that Sean Marion and Amari Stoudemire, those kind of guys got with those offenses. I mean, it's not like Amari had a great little run before he got hurt with the Knicks, but it was never like the efficiency and kind of use that he had with the Suns. And it's just, you know, it seems like this team with this offense, it's like D'Antoni and Nash. No, they've got the guys that can, you know, they've got the Ferraris running this thing now. They don't have to worry about the Sean Marions of the world and trying to make these guys create offense. So it's like, let's just let these guys go out and do them. But do you worry that, you know, and this is the thing I've talked about with Dunny going forward, you know, the whole year. And that was the exact situation I've been waiting for with the Bucks and the Nets. Is there's 3 minutes left. It was a 6-point lead for the Bucks when it went to that timeout. And I was like, can the Bucks close it out? Like, can they get that kind of offense? And it looked to me like Giannis, you know, he missed a couple shots at the end too, but they were able to withstand with their strong defensive play. So do you think when it starts slowing down and we start grinding and they play in these, you know, really good defensive teams in Philly and Milwaukee, are those end of game possessions without that kind of ball movement, are they going to become an issue? Or are these guys, when all three of them are on the court, it's not going to matter in those end of game situations?
I think it's the latter. I mean, we're talking about Kyrie Irving, a guy who hit one of the most clutch shots in NBA Finals history. He's going to miss a few of them, but when push comes to shove, the Nets were down 6. Kyrie hit a huge 3, cut it to 3. He went and missed the next 3, but then he got it back, hit a layup. I mean, I trust Kyrie Irving in crunch time situations. I 100% trust Kevin Durant in crunch time situations. I mean, you want to talk about clutch shots in NBA Finals. He hit 2 to essentially end the Cavaliers' chances of winning any more games in those series. So KD's clutch. And James Harden, I mean, for most of his career has been great in the fourth quarter, but this year he has been phenomenal. I don't know if you guys remember Harden's performance against the Suns when it was just him. No Kyrie, no KD. I mean, he took a Nets team that had no business being in that game back from the depths of hell, and he hit the game-winning three-pointer that essentially closed it out. So I'm not worried about the lack of ball movement. I mean, you see that around the NBA in crunch time. If a team has, you know, Luka Doncic, Kawhi Leonard, LeBron James, they're not running some elaborate off-ball screen for Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. They're going to run something basic. You know, they're going to have their best player get somebody in isolation, step back, drive to the rim, or a pick and roll. So I'm not really worried about the crunch time stuff when it comes to the big three.
So we've now hit just about every offensive cylinder here to talk about. I guess something that me and Jake have talked about kind of all season long with the Nets, and even going into the season, and it's probably the only real criticism that media can give this super talented team, is the defense. And I want to single in on Sunday's game because it looked like they were just letting Giannis shoot, which a lot of teams do. But I mean, if a guy's putting up 49, I feel like there's a time that you got to start closing out, and it never seemed to happen that way on Sunday. DeAndre Jordan was kind of just giving Giannis anything he wanted, and Giannis was missing at first, but then he decided, I'll take a few dribbles and I can still beat DJ off the bounce if I need to. Do you worry, I guess, tonight specifically against a guy like Giannis, and then moving forward? Do you think there's some real defensive issues with this team, or is that something that will kind of work itself out once you get the three-headed monster back?
I'm not crazy worried about the defense. I think Brooklyn, when all the guys are healthy, or even not all the guys are healthy, they normally play great defense. That was a bad matchup for DeAndre Jordan. I'm not sure why they had him on Giannis. I know Blake Griffin did a much better job, and Jeff Green when they had to cover Giannis. I want to shout out Blake Griffin, by the way. He's been such a fun player to watch for the Nets. You want to talk about defense? I think he's drawn 11 charges with this team, something crazy like that. He's been great. He had a big putback slam against Milwaukee on Sunday. But back to the defense, Steve Nash said, we can't get too worried about Giannis going off for 49 because he's not going to do that every game. I think in that third quarter, he had the first 14 points. He hit a few open threes. You live with that. He ended up with 4 threes on the night. He's not hitting 4 threes tonight. He's not a 50-point scorer normally. So I don't think the Nets are too worried about Giannis. I think, it's on their game plan to put a body on him a little bit more, not let him get to his spots, make him a little uncomfortable. But you got to look at the rest of the team. I mean, Middleton had a good game. The Bucks shot the ball great from the three-point line. Forbes hit some big shots in that fourth quarter. Yeah. And the Nets role players just didn't really show up. Like I said, it was KD and it was Blake Griffin. No, Shamet played bad. Joe Harris played bad. Everybody else on the Nets didn't play well. So, you live with what Giannis is going to do on a nightly basis. He usually only gets 25 to 35. He's not really over that 35 mark, and he's not hitting 4 threes a game. So I don't think the Nets have to change too much on defense. I'm not worried about them moving forward. Just don't put DeAndre Jordan on Giannis. That's just a nightmare matchup for DJ.
It is. Who is the matchup though? Like when they're going, if there is a series,
Blake Griffin has proven that he plays these guys very hard. I forgot who they played the other night. He beat up Siakam when they beat the Raptors. Siakam was 2 of 16. I think he just gives you a solid guy to put a body on someone. I think he's a little bit more versatile defensively than Jeff Green is. I don't love Jeff Green's defense. I think you play Jeff Green for his offense. And then we don't have Nick Claxton right now. Nick Claxton's probably our best defender down low. So, get him back. And I think we'll be able to slow down Giannis. Embiid worries me a little bit, but we'll see. I mean, that's someone that Claxton has to D up because DeAndre Jordan will get pushed around by Joel Embiid.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, so we've talked a lot of negative here. I guess we'll allow you to hype up your Nets squad as much as we can with this next question. Outside of the big three, because obviously we spend a lot of time on them, who do you think going forward, so not just tonight, but with the playoffs coming up too, who do you think that maybe not the best player, but the most important guy on this roster is outside that three-headed monster?
There's so many different places you can go with this question.
Yep.
I mean, on a nightly basis, you know what you're getting from guys like Joe Harris, Landry Shamet. The wild card player is Bruce Brown because Bruce Brown can have a night where he goes for 12, 15, and 3 or 5 or something along those lines where he has a very productive game. And then he can barely play against the Bucks because he's not one of those guys you want in a shootout. He can't really shoot that well. I would say for me, it's between Blake Griffin and Jeff Green, and I'm going to go with Jeff Green.
Yeah, I like that.
He's been playing very, very good basketball this year. I don't know if you guys watch the Nets on a weekly basis. He dunks the ball on someone. He takes a life basically once a game. There's a highlight Jeff Green dunk, and they talk about how old he is. I mean, I think he's only 33, 34. He's not that old, but and if he's hitting his 3-point shot, which occasionally he'll get cold, he's probably the 4th best offensive player on the team.
Mm-hmm.
And he's a very, very special option to have, as a gadget big man. He can play down low. He can play outside on the perimeter. He's not a terrible defender. I think that's probably his weakest area. But for me, the answer is Jeff Green, because he gives you that scoring 4 or 5 to go along with KD and Kyrie.
I love that. Jeff Green, first of all, when Jeff Green, you are right. When it's cold, like that shot gets ugly. Like it's just flat. Yeah. But when Jeff Green is going, like he looks like he's like one of the best scorers in the league out of nowhere. Like he has so much punch to him, and he's had it all of his career. I think with him, like at the beginning of his career, he kind of thought he was like a superstar level. Like he thought he was going to turn into one of those talents and had that belief in himself.
He had that potential. He had a lot of injuries. He had the heart thing.
Issue. Yeah. And so it just never clicked for him.
I'll tell you this, a very underrated part of Jeff Green's game is his mid-range. I mean, that's how he came into the league as a mid-range shooter. So there are times, because you don't think of Jeff Green as a, I guess, threat, he'll get the ball in the post and his defender will completely go to sleep, and he'll either just go to the rim or he'll take a little fadeaway and nail it because he's 6'10". He's a very, very solid power forward. And you saw that, I guess, last year. Was he with Houston? Do you guys remember?
Yes.
Yeah.
He was pretty good with Houston too. So I'm glad that he's on the team.
Bro, in 2018 with the Cavs, he was the 2nd best player on that team. Like when they were in the finals, it was nuts to see. But it was hit LeBron, then Jeff Green.
I know. Donnie remembers Jeff Green's Celtics days.
Yeah, I was going to say, you guys mentioned he thought he was a superstar. I remember he was a superstar. Put up 45 against Miami Heat's LeBron James. That was that was nice. I do remember that. Uncle Jeff has a special place in my heart. That's for sure. I guess before we wrap up, we should talk a little Bucks here. I know you're the Nets guy, but give us like, I guess, just an overall opinion that you have on the Bucks. And do you think people are overlooking this team, them sitting at the 3 seed in the Eastern Conference and kind of been off and on this year? Are they just Giannis? Do they have the roster outside of them? What do you think about this Milwaukee team?
Well, let's look at the big difference between Milwaukee this year and Milwaukee previous years. Their big addition is Drew Holiday. He gives them a veteran guard who can score the ball. He's an elite defender. He can shoot from the perimeter, and he helps with the workload on offense between Middleton and Giannis. They don't have to do as much. He can kind of create for himself. I do think the Bucks are in a very dangerous position in regards to, we view them as that team that chokes in the playoffs. They've been the 1 seed. They've been there. They've lost to the Heat. Did they lose to the Celtics or the Heat last year?
Heat last year.
Every year they just come up short. And I feel like, because we're all talking about the Sixers, we're talking about the Nets, I think we are sleeping on the Bucks a little bit. Giannis, is one of the hungriest guys in the league. He came into the NBA as such a raw talent, and he's basically built his game from nothing into a perennial MVP candidate every year. So it's he's a scary player in the playoffs. You know what you're going to get from Middleton, and the X factor is now Drew Holiday. How good is Drew Holiday? Is he on the same level as, I guess, a Jamal Murray or a Donovan Mitchell? I guess is a better comparison, or is he just below that Donovan Mitchell tier?
Shit, man. Yeah, like Middleton, he's the most, he baffles me, to be honest. Like these guys, those two, Middleton and Holiday, like it's weird because that's how you just said it so perfectly, because we don't know what we've seen. Like we haven't gotten the chance to see what they can really do in these kind of situations. He's like, especially Drew Holiday, never really had this kind of chance, never had this opportunity that he's going to have in the playoffs to kind of prove himself in the biggest moments. And the year that 2 years ago against the Raptors, like they were just outmatched and they just looked shell shocked. Like that was a team that looked shell shocked, didn't look ready for that kind of moment. And that's what I wonder with them go this year, because last year with the Bucks, they focused so much on the regular season. They were so, you could tell how proud they were of their regular season. You know what I mean? Like, and we've learned how dangerous that can be for some teams that put that much focus. And then obviously last year, unforeseen circumstances, whatever happened, and then they ended up in the worst matchup with the fraud bubble Miami Heat team that ended up in the NBA Finals. So I'm man, the East, just like any of these three teams. Spending a couple weeks ago, I picked the Sixers to make the finals. I still don't know how good I feel about it, even after I made the pick. I'm sticking to it just because I don't want to. But you could talk me into the Bucks. You don't have to talk me into the Nets. I could talk myself into the Nets. But I could talk myself into the Bucks at almost any moment, just because, with a player of Giannis's stature, like sometimes you just get those breakthrough, like superstar Hall of Fame moments from these guys, and it could be this year. I mean, they've had the heartbreak that you would see going forward.
I think also what the Bucks have done well is they've surrounded Giannis and Middleton and Holiday. They have a lot of 3-point shooters. I brought up Bryn Forbes before. You pick up Bobby Portis, who can shoot the three from that position. You still have Pat Connaughton. You still have Dante DiVincenzo, and you recently just acquired Jeff Teague, who I think all of us would love as a backup point guard. He's been nothing but good in that role as a veteran now. So I like the players that they've surrounded these guys with.
PJ Tucker too from the corner.
PJ Tucker, exactly. He played very well against the Nets the other night. But then I look at the Sixers and I say, well, you guys have Danny Green who can hit the three. Seth Curry was a huge pickup for you guys. Crazy. Obviously Ben Simmons can't shoot at all. But you have Embiid. You have I'm blanking on this one. Tobias Harris. I'm sorry. Yeah, you still have Tobias. Like, there's a lot of solid players on each team that can score and just play well off of superstars. And I think that's something that the general manager for both teams did really well.
And it's a Doc Rivers Tobias Harris, which is apparently a completely different player than regular Tobias Harris.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, what you just said, Spenny, about the Bucks too, when you go through all those shooters, I think that's what I guess if there's one thing that people overlook about the Bucks is how complete their offense can be, because Sunday night it was more they relied on their big three, where Giannis, Middleton, and Drew Holiday were pretty much the only guys getting buckets. But if they really want to, they can play through Giannis, dribble drive, and then find all these shooters, like you just mentioned, Connaughton, DiVincenzo, Tucker, Middleton, Holiday. Like, they can play as a unit, where we saw in the playoffs a couple of years ago, this is a team, and the regular season, they would hit, record-breaking 3-pointers made like every week, it seemed like. So they got shooters around, and they can do it with their stars, or if they want to play as a unit and, kind of spread the wealth, they can do that too. But now comes the toughest question of the night. Who are you guys taking? What do we got for tonight's matchup? Bucks Nets. Is it a repeat of Sunday, or Spenny's Nets taking this one?
You guys want to pick first? I'll go last.
I'll lead it off. I already placed a bet on this game. I bet on the Brooklyn Nets. They think it was +1.5. It's mostly it's a schedule thing for me as much as anything else. In these back-to-back sets, you rarely see the team that won the first game win the second game. It hasn't happened a lot this year so far, and even the second game has kind of gotten ugly in some of these matchups. And I just don't see there's any way the Nets losing twice in a row to a lot of teams, and maybe that's why I should have picked them instead of the Sixers to make the finals. But it's hard for me to see them. It's hard for me to see on this back-to-back with the Nets. I think it's still going to be. I think we're still getting a barn burner of a game, though. Like, I think the Bucks take this matchup. I think Giannis. I don't know if it's the Bucks and stuff. I think Giannis takes this matchup extremely personally, and I think it has to do with KD and just the Nets and just all these guys pay attention to all the talk and all the narratives around them. And we've kind of, everybody in NBA, media, Twitter, whatever, has just dismissed the Bucks and Giannis this whole year. I mean, we've talked about it a couple of times. Like, what Giannis is having a good enough season to be an MVP consideration. I mean, Jokic would probably still get it regardless, but no, he had no shot. Like, unless he was like averaging like 35 and 25, like he wasn't going to win MVP. So I think he's taking this stuff all that personally, and it's going to be interesting to see going forward. But for tonight, Kevin Durant gets it back. I think we're getting a close one, though.
Yeah, I especially like the spread, the fact that the Nets are underdogs tonight. I'm going Nets as well. I just think, for me, it lies on the way Kyrie and KD finished that game. I know they would like to have it go differently. especially Kyrie had 20, I think, last game, but not his best game, as we kind of touched on. I think you can expect a big game from both those guys. I mean, if the Nets are coming off a loss and they're playing the same team and they have two of their three-headed monster, I think you'd be silly not to bet the Nets.
This is obvious. I like the Nets. They lost their last two games, right? They lost to the Bucks on Sunday. They lost to the Blazers on Friday. This is a team that doesn't go on losing streaks. They just don't. Not with Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving on the court. I do think the Bucks will come out and whack them in the first quarter. Like, if I'm going to bet on this game, I would bet Bucks first quarter. It just feels like one of those games where the Bucks carry momentum from that win into this game, hit the Nets with an uppercut in that first quarter, and then the Nets kind of steady the fight in the second, and then they take control in the third. So I'm kind of viewing this game that way. I think the Bucks are going to come out swinging, but I think the Nets are able to kind of steady it. You'll see some three-pointers from Shamet and Joe Harris tonight. Hopefully Blake Griffin has some sick dunks and draws a few charges. I think the role players for the Nets play better tonight. And I just think Nash has them more focused on defense. I think, you're going to see Giannis go for 30 or 40 points tonight. I don't think you're going to see a great game from anybody else.
Heard it here first, folks. All Nets, baby.
Give me that Giannis KD just barn burner.
Also, I need Joe Harris over 2.5 threes. I placed a 7 or 8 thing parlay on DraftKings, and Joe Harris hitting 3 threes is part of it.
There you go.
Hold up though, because I need Joe Harris, because after night 1 in our fantasy basketball final, Dunny is whooping my ass 72. And so I've got Joe Harris, Jeff Green, and Kyrie Irving and Giannis in this matchup for tonight. So I'm hoping for all the points, literally every single point that I can squeeze out of this game. Give me 5 overtimes, whatever. I'll take anything.
I got a quick question for you guys. Outside of the 3 teams that we've talked about in the East, is there any other team that concerns you in the Eastern Conference?
My Celtics concern me that they're going to miss the playoffs.
Yo, man, they are very hot and cold. I watch a lot of the C's, man. I do. Because I want to talk shit to my Mass friends. But I don't know. Like, without Kemba, Tatum's excellent now, but now you got this injury to Jaylen Brown. You guys are kind of screwed.
Yeah.
It's been the year from hell for the C's, bro. It really has.
I think if they can avoid the play-in tournament, I like their chances beating any team in the East in a series, then I like their chances playing one game in a play-in tournament. Mm-hmm. Like, that's just how the Celtics season would go. They would lose the play-in game. Like, that's
especially
how the
if
team plays this year.
Imagine you get a Charlotte and then Washington, play Charlotte, LaMelo gets a triple double, whatever, and then you have to play who would you take? And if you're in a matchup, a 1-game series, you taking Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, or Russell Westbrook and Bradley Beal? Like, I'm sorry.
As a Nets fan, the Wizards scare me. I don't want to see this Wizards team in the playoffs. I don't think anybody does.
13-3 in their last 16.
Russ is on one, man. I got a buddy in Long Island. He will just wax poetic, text me every day about Russell Westbrook. I haven't cared, but they've been really good lately. And now, they've whooped the Nets, by the way. I think the Wizards are 2-0 against the Nets this year. So I'm really hoping that we don't see them. I'd be fine if
that would be an electric first round series, though.
I know. I want to see the Pacers.
My.
I want to see the beat up Pacers.
Westbrook
Give me the young
Durant in the first round.
Yeah, I don't want to.
I know. I'm sorry.
In the Eastern Conference somehow.
I don't need that anxiety in the first round, dude. I just don't. I do want to see the Knicks in the second round as a Nets fan. I've been on record saying that. I talked trash to Jerry Ferrara, Turtle from Entourage. We got in a little Twitter spat recently. Good guy, devoted Knicks fan. Love the show. Told him I want Entourage back on the air, but Knicks fans are very cocky right now, and I just I want to shut them up in the playoffs.
They're getting hyped up a little bit. To answer your question, I was going to say the Knicks, depending on the matchups, because I think that they could beat the Sixers in the second round. I think they match up really well with the Sixers. The Bucks or Nets, I don't know about, but
I think the easy answer is the Heat, right? Because they were there last year. They're sitting 6 right now. But the Hawks don't scare me. The Celtics are the 7 seed right now, so they don't scare me. The Knicks might be the right answer, Jake.
Yeah, no one wants to play Charlotte or Washington though. Like none of these teams want to see those scrappy ass teams. All right, so we're all on the Nets tonight. we're tipping off probably about, I don't know when TNT tips these games off.
Probably
Like,
7:47 is my guess.
something stupid. Like ESPN is always, it never fails at ESPN. If they say it's 7:30, it's going to be 7:45. But TNT, you never know. I just want some consistency in my TV scheduling. I don't ask for a lot more than that. But that was our boy Spenny in the Nets. Find him at Fireside Nets from Empire Sports Media. As always, with Donovan Olden here. We'll be back Thursday night, I believe, with another episode coming. And as playoff time rolls around, you'll be seeing a lot of us. Don't you guys worry. So thanks for tuning into the preview, and keep it locked. Stay hydrated. Enjoy the game. Have a good one, folks.
Later, guys.